everyone, and welcome to episode 21 of the Best You a Coaching podcast. It's Gary here again, and as always, I'd like to start the show by thanking you very, very much for taking the time to join me today. And of course, I hope you're all doing great and continuing to invest in whatever work it is you have committed to getting you to being closer to the best version of you. So the interview series that I mentioned before, as you'll know for frequent followers of the show, that it's primarily me doing this, what I'm doing to you, just on my own, giving you an overview of the content that I am sharing for this particular go-round. And of late, I've been talking about the interview series that I've been putting into place and doing the groundwork for. I did get to launch the very first interview on that over the last wee while, and hopefully you had a chance to see that. If you listened to this on your podcast app, you probably were notified. If you follow the show, you would probably get notified of that. And if you listen to it just on the website, you probably see it when you go and you see all the little thumbnails for each of the podcasts that are there. You'll see one that's different. That's a kind of usually a blue and a red theme, and this was more white and a little bit more bold. But yeah, I was very fortunate to have a colleague of mine, Jennifer Vinges, on, and we talked about basically a variety of topics, but primarily, the desire and ability to be able to push yourself, self-education and the power of that, control over your life, and spent a bit of time also discussing the power of showing up, continuously, regularly, consistently showing up. I thoroughly enjoyed getting going on the interview series, and I have recorded one more which will be published fairly soon here, and have quite a number in the works now. So that's going to be part of the content creation over the next while, and it's kind of exciting, I have to say. I'm quite excited by that, and I hope that you have had a chance to listen to it. And if you haven't, please do go and check it out. I'm going to try and make them a little bit shorter. It's probably going to be most likely dictated by the depth of conversation that we're having. But this one, the one with Jennifer, was probably about 22 minutes, something like that. My ideal state is, as you might remember from the last pod here, would be around about half an hour, and give you some good information there. And if the topic or the conversation or the speaker themselves, or the guest I should say, themselves is so interesting we didn't quite get where we wanted to get to, I could split it up into different interviews, or at least use longer content and break it down over kind of 2 parts or something. But I do want to try and provide a little bit more bite-sized content for you to listen to, so you're not spending too much time, having me going on in your ears. So yeah, if you listen to it, I'd love to hear from you, and let me know what you think of the content, what you thought of the interview format and such. And if you're interested, and this is a bit of a call to action for anyone listening, if you're interested in coming along onto the pod at any point to share your story, to give the listeners some information, guidance, advice or whatnot, please do get in touch with me, and we can have a quick chat about whether that would be something that we could move forward with and work on a collaboration together on that. If you listen on a podcast app, certainly Apple Podcast apps for sure, you can text me in the app itself by saying, text us or something like that. I can't remember exactly what the label says. Or you can email me at hello@garygillen.com, or visit the website and click the button that says connect with Gary there, and I would be very delighted to hear from you. And if we can make something happen, all the better. So what you can expect in this episode is that I will work through kind of an audio chattier version of the most recent blog, which was on True and Truth, and managing personal and objective truths. And what I did with this particular blog was it was getting too long. So if you've read the blog already, you'll see that it says part 1, and then at the bottom I did explain that I'm just going to break it up a wee bit. My ideal scenario, just to give you a bit of an understanding of the kind of science behind the blogs, is I try and go for between 1,500 and 1,800 words roughly. Sometimes it's a wee bit more. Not very often it's less. In fact, I don't think I've ever been less than the 1500 mark. But I've still got quite a lot of content I want to discuss on the topics of true and truth. So I decided to split it up and say, you know what, that let's introduce the topic of true and truth, of personal and objective truths. And then next time we'll go a wee bit deeper in some of the topics that were introduced, and then we'll talk about some of the benefits and some of the pitfalls if they are not acknowledged and utilised or managed correctly. So you'll see that's a little bit, it's the first time I've done something like that, but I didn't want to provide like a 2800 word blog there. I personally don't want to read a 2800 word blog, so I'm using myself as a little bit of a guide on what would be acceptable or not as we move forward. So that's the reason for that. And before I get to the actual blog content in and of itself, I'll just give you a wee bit of an overview of what I've been up to since we last chatted, continuing with my Growth Day and Mastermind Business Academy learnings. Growth Day, as I mentioned on the last pod there, the theme of Growth Day teachings this month, is emotional freedom. And I did attend a weekly training. They have a training every Wednesday, and it was on financial freedom or money emotions, managing your money emotions. And the fellow Mel, I can't remember his name now, forgive me, I'll get the name for next time, I promise. But he provided a framework, and it was under the word, the anagram of well, not the anagram, sorry, just the word clear. And the words, the letters in clear stood for the first letter in each of his framework topics. And the first one, from a clear perspective, is clarity of vision, what it is you're trying to do in terms of your emotions and how they correlate to your financial situation today and where you would like to get to. Then the L part is literacy in finances, knowing what it is you're talking about and what the various facets of finance mean to and for you. The E was emotional intelligence, understanding how you act and react emotionally to the concept of finances, how you've managed finances in the past, how you would like to manage them in the future. A is actionable plan and creating something for you that is going to get you closer to where you want to be in the future. And the R was resilience building, basically building up tools, techniques, processes, skills, experience in your money matters to give yourself that emotional foundation or emotional peace, if you like, almost, to know that what you're doing is the right thing because it's been thought out, it's right for you, it's appropriate, it's realistic, and you get an opportunity to build some resilience from that. So very interesting stuff, and I like the variety that comes under the topics that we get there. On Mastermind, continuing to work through building my presence up in what they call the hub, which is the technical platform. I mentioned last time they don't make it too easy. There's not too much of an update on that for this time because it's the exact same as not too easy. But I have to say I am working through it. I'm attending the classes, I'm asking the questions and doing what I can do on that. I did mention before that my blockers course is going to be launched somewhat imminently. I'm going to do a masterclass or a workshop. I'm not 100% sure, and those are different things, and it depends really on whether I'm going to do more of a lecture format or going to have it a bit more interactive. But I'm going to do a kind of 1 hour, maybe 90-minute teaser on that sometime, likely mid-August. I'm going to start building up my social media communications for that in the next week or so. So if you look at when this podcast was published, you'll get an idea of when to look out for that. So that's fairly exciting. And in social media, I have been posting every day, every business day, my apologies, on LinkedIn and on Facebook as well, just giving you my format for each of them is Monday mindset, to set yourself up for success for the week. Tuesday truth, to give you something that is true and you need to listen to and, make your own mind up about that. I'll get to more of that when I get to the blog content. Wednesday wisdom, kind of give yourself an opportunity to set yourself up for what's been accomplished thus far in the week and what you want to accomplish for the remainder of the week. Thursday thanks, something that I express some gratitude for. And then Friday findings is a bit of an amalgam, almost like a status report or a summary report on how the business week went for me, and hopefully that content is resonating with you. And I did mention before, and I'll mention it probably every time, but you can subscribe to my mailing list as well. Not a lot of people do. For some reason, not a lot of people are interacting with me on social media thus far. So I will have a bit of a call to action prior to the end of the pod today on that. But I would love to have you as part of the mailing list. I don't spam a whole bunch of nonsense or garbage or anything that's not in keeping with the service I'm trying to provide to the community. But I'd love to get a few more of you there, so that you have access to the content when it's actually coming out and you don't just happen upon it in your social media feeds or such. So anyway, on to the actual content for this week. And as I said earlier, we are covering blog number 22. And the title is True and Truth, Managing Personal and Objective Truths, Part 1. And I basically started the blog by asking about your experiences with the truth. What would you say is, for example, your track record? Do you absolutely swear by the truth and its foundation, in your whole life, or do you lie through your teeth to get whatever you want to happen in a particular situation? Or is it somewhere in between, or is it situation dependent? Some kind of open-ended questions there, just to give you a bit of an overview, or a bit of an opportunity to think is probably the best way to say it. And only you, or maybe those closest to you, I guess, would be in the mix of things as well, is genuinely going to know the answer to those questions. How seriously you take the truth, how seriously you live by the truth, how the truth impacts you, how you act and react when you are not being given all of the truth or any of the truth when people are imparting information onto you. And I did, at the very early stages of the blog, talk about my love of movies and developed that into essentially a metaphor for life, that we all play different roles in different circumstances of our lives, and as a result of them, a direct result of those roles that we play, we will have access to different types, styles and levels of detail of the information that we are party to. And with that will then have an impact on what is true for us, but that's within a larger construct. So if that doesn't make much sense in terms of me saying that to you, I would encourage you to go check out the blog and look at least the summary part to give you an idea. But I basically kind of said we're playing different roles. You have different scripts for different roles. If you're a bit part in a movie, then you're going to have very, very little information and maybe not even an understanding of what the entire movie is about. If you have the lead role, you're going to have access to absolutely everything, and it gives you a bit more of an understanding of what's going on, why people are behaving the way they're behaving, why information is flowing the way that it's flowing, and then you're in a better position to be able to understand whether your truth bears reality to the objective truth, which is the true truth, if I could say that. And that's essentially where it was going from there. I went on to discuss true and truth, and most times I would go to dictionary.com just to get the literal definitions to then be able to put our interpretive spin on things. And on true, it's basically in accordance with the actual state or conditions, conforming to reality or fact, real, exact, precise, accurate, correct, honest, honourable, or upright. Those were the definitions for true. And for truth, the true or actual state of a matter, so it's fairly similar to true, of course, conformity with fact or reality, a verified or indisputable fact, actuality, or an obvious or accepted fact is the definitions there. And the reason it ended up being the title of the blog, quite honestly, is when I was going through my IPEC coaching training a number of years back now, This was one of the concepts that they'd given us as coaches. You need to learn to work with your client to understand what is true for them might not necessarily be the entire truth. They are a subset. They are an actor in a role, if you like, and there is a bigger picture to things, literally and figuratively. And I have to say, from the very, very beginning, folks, I absolutely loved the concept of that. Now, academically, I can understand that, this is what my experience was, this is what's true for me. I didn't typically use that language prior to the training, to be perfectly honest, but I hadn't really had it framed in that way that, someone's experience is very personal to them, and of course that's absolutely okay, but it might not actually be reflective of anything resembling the actual truth of what's going on. It doesn't diminish or in any way undermine what their experience is, but it was a more expansive thought process which I really loved, and it really resonated with me. So the two main truths that we have that I embellished a little bit in the blog was personal truth, which is your own subjective reality. And it's an amalgam of your life experiences to date that have influenced you as a person, who you are today, and includes your beliefs, your cultural beliefs, your societal beliefs, your familial, religious beliefs, etc. And your experiences, like what has happened to you, and what have you been involved in, and what impacts those experiences had on you. And sometimes your experiences, by the way, can end up influencing your overall subjective reality, like your own way of being, your own beliefs. So when you get to your beliefs and your experiences, they're not absolute and they're not cast in stone. It's almost like a machine that continues to feed itself, I guess is maybe a way that might make a bit of sense there. It's a process. It's not, and it's definitely not linear in a process perspective. And then also your perceptions, which is your interpretations that you make based on sensory interactions, is the way that I described it, and they are subjective. They are prone to your own biases, and they can and they do vary greatly. Even between individuals who have similar beliefs, maybe similar experiences, and they're exposed to the exact same experience as you at the exact same time, they might still have a different perception of what actually happened in and of that moment or that experience. And your personal truth is absolutely personal to you. I mentioned that briefly just a wee while ago there, but people can come and challenge it. People can dispute your truth, and they can maybe attempt to dissuade you or re-educate you or rubbish your truth, but it isn't random, and it has an experiential, scientific-based foundation for you based on your makeup, based on your biases, based on your experiences, based on your perceptions. And it's really, really important to know that your personal truth is absolutely that. It's personal to you. And I want to emphasize that just one more time, that it doesn't mean it's right or wrong. It doesn't mean it's good or bad or anything, any other kind of label that you would like to put on that from a judgment standpoint. This is what's true for you. And that's that. And then when we get to the objective truth, that's when you start to sprinkle the reality of your truth and mix it in with the, what you start to understand as being the objective truth, to get you to a spot where you see a bigger picture, you see your role in that picture, you understand where you came from, you get an opportunity to have more expansive thinking, to grow, and then move on and make the best decisions as to what the next best things are for you to do. So on to objective truth. It's the reality that exists independently of basically anything else, of you, of me, of us. It's very fact-based. It's consistent regardless of any form of external influence. So people will still try to dispute the objective truth as well. Conspiracy theories, trying to dissuade them from that, trying to dispute certain parts of the truth. But getting back to it's fact-based and it's consistent, regardless of any form of external influence. Essentially, it is what it is. Whether you like it or not is immaterial. Whether you support it or not is immaterial. Whether it's beneficial to you or not is completely immaterial. It is what it is. And boiled down, we are talking about personal perception versus objective reality. And when I say perception versus reality, I don't mean to be loose or casual with my language in that regard, and it's certainly not meant to downplay the importance of our own personal thoughts, feelings and interpretations, but sometimes we do use perception versus reality loose, a little bit more flippant than it maybe deserves to be in a given circumstance. So, to describe kind of fantasy versus the truth, that's the way that I used to hear it, or that's the way that I still hear it today, actually, almost. But what I'm attempting to convey here is that objective truths are unaffected by anyone's emotions, anyone's personal feelings, anyone's preferences, anyone's biases. They remain completely independent from anything else other than facts and evidence. It's indisputable, essentially, is what that looks like. So that's the personal and the objective truth. And then I went on to talk about interpretations and limiting beliefs. And back to my IPEC coaching, these were two of a series of 4 major cornerstones to people's individual personality and makeup, and it was part of a thing they called GALES, which was Gremlins, Assumptions, Interpretations and Limiting Beliefs. And I'm focusing on the interpretations and limiting beliefs here because I think they're absolutely key, especially when it comes to the true and truth and personal and objective truth. So interpretations are stories, opinions or judgments that you have created about an event, about a situation, about a person, about an experience, about a country, about a team, about an organisation, about an industry that you believe to be true. And it's your interpretation of what you believe to be true based on a variety of factors and information that you've had access to. Limiting beliefs are generalisations, stereotypes, or ideas that you have learned and accepted about yourself, about the world, about other things, people, entities, the things that I just kind of spoke about there, that in some way limits you. So if you had a belief that I'm just not good at, football, I'm just not good at writing, I'm just not good at public speaking, I'm just not good at cooking, I'm just not good at being disciplined for exercise, that's a limiting belief. That's a belief that in some way closes you off from potential possibility and in the future and potential gains for you in the future. And I thought that those were really important because essentially they help you determine reality. And here's some tips that I did mention in the blog specifically in terms of questions to ask yourself to make sure that you understand where you're at in the reality sphere or realm for you. If you didn't do anything else other than ask yourself these 2 questions at any point in time, and I would encourage you to write them down. Pause the podcast right now, write them down, get a tattoo of them if that's your jam, write them down on your fridge, put them as a screensaver, put them in your notes on your phone, whatever it is you want to do to remind yourself of these 2 questions, do that. And the 2 questions are, how true is this interpretation? I'm interpreting something to be this way, and I believe this to be true. How true is it? And what that does is it gives you an opportunity to really gather some facts, data and information about how much facts, data and information you actually have. And then you have an opportunity to say, it feels like there's more, or I know that there's more out there, and you can go and then do more digging and information gathering. And the second question is, what evidence do I have to support that belief? So if you have a belief that, as I said earlier, I'm not good at cooking, public speaking, being disciplined or whatnot, what evidence do I have to support that belief? Well, I tried to do public speaking one time when I was in school, and everyone laughed at me when I stuttered on my words a wee bit. So that's evidence in and of itself. Well, that was 45 years ago. Maybe you want to give it another go because you've had a whole bunch of life experience between then and now. So the 2 questions, just to reiterate again, how true is that interpretation? And the second question is, what evidence do I have to support that belief? If you do this and you ask yourself these questions regularly, especially when you get to something that's becoming or has potential to become a situation that can cause you some extra work, some grief, some hassle, some heartache, some hard times, additional work, whatever it is, if you get an opportunity to say, right, how true is this information that I have and what evidence do I have to support these beliefs, you'll be in a much, much better spot. Please trust me on that. And then I talked about discerning between personal and objective truths. So the discerning part is very, very important, and this is almost like a logical sequence that we go through of identifying what they are, discerning between them, and then talking about management of them. And that was the flow that I had. So discerning between personal and objective truths, firstly being open to the fact that your truth might not be the absolute entire objective truth is an absolutely fantastic start. That's exactly where you want to be. And then, and then taking it from there. That gives you information in and of itself. And by the way, your truth might be the objective truth as well. That's not completely out with the realms of possibility. But just being open to saying, this is my experience, this is my interpretation, this is my perception, this is where I'm at right now. I want to try and find more about the bigger picture to see where I land in terms of the overall grand scheme of the truth. I'd love to know, where are you at on that? Like, truly, where are you at in terms of understanding that your truth might not be the actual truth, that your truth might be a subset of the actual truth, that your truth might have zero bearing on the reality of what the actual truth is? Ask yourself that question and really delve deep to say, when I get a truth in my head, am I open to thinking that there might be something else to this? Or am I very closed, where I say, I have enough information, I am quite comfortable with the conclusion that I have drawn here, this is true for me, and that's that? Have a think about that, and maybe think about why that is at the same time. So how to discern between both of the truths is to seek evidence. Stick to the facts and the data that's presented, and try and keep some of the more emotional, more personal to you or others information on this side. Not to completely ignore it or discount it at all, but sticking to the facts and the data is going to give you a better idea of where things sit between personal and objective truth. Challenge the perceptions and assumptions that are there. Like, actively question your perceptions and assumptions. Like, debate with yourself. That's not to say argue with yourself or consistently become indecisive, for example, to a fault, which holds you back, and you end up kind of becoming paralysed by the analysis, or paralysis by analysis. But, take some time to think about a bigger picture. And when you come to a conclusion about what's true, then start to kind of debate. Say, okay, how true is that? What evidence do I have? Back to the questions that I mentioned earlier there. Managing any biases that you have, understanding, acknowledging everyone has biases, and they are neither good nor bad. They are just the way that you are made up. But understanding what your biases are and where you use them for good and for evil and for not good is going to give you an idea of where you potentially might have some blind spots, where you might have some significant experience in an area where you would be more perceptive, and gives you an opportunity to kind of understand what you're going to do with that. And just beware of aligning with biases or aligning with truths that align with your biases. If something becomes too easy where you're saying, yes, that's exactly what it is, it could be because you're in a situation where you're aligning with your biases and maybe not what's actually best or what's actually true at the same time. Then reflect, constantly reflect, and whatever is the best way for you to reflect is my main advice here, and make that a purposeful habit in your life. Seek diverse experiences. Use whomever is in your network or out with your network to give you an alternative viewpoint that might help you with more expansive thinking, things that you might not have thought about or considered at a given point in time. And then practice mindfulness. And in your life, there are very few times where mindfulness is not going to be of benefit to you, your circumstance, your situation, and your network. And just find something that works for you. It could be breathing, it could be meditation, it could be walking, it could be windshield time when you're driving, it could be reading, whatever it is, but make sure you're mindful to practice mindfulness. And now that we're on our way to being able to discern between personal and objective truth, we're now working towards, understanding processes, techniques, and to be able to manage these truths effectively. So, the first point of guidance here is to balance the truth. Acknowledge that your personal truth is exactly that, is your personal truth. Validate it with as much objective evidence as you have, and then see where you end up and what your next best step should be in terms of balancing where you're at and what your knowledge is at that given time of your personal and the objective truth. Being adaptable, being prepared to be flexible when new information becomes available, actively seeking new information, additional information, testing that information as it comes in. Clearly communicating at every single point you possibly can. Now that's a life lesson, isn't it? That's something that we're all trying to strive to do each and every day. But let people know how you ended up where you ended up. What evidence, information, experiences, how you've gotten to where you've gotten to, and what it is you're actually trying to do next will give you better opportunity for a more open dialogue and a more rich dialogue. I would offer up as well. Educate yourself. Commit to being a lifelong learner. I do hope that literally because you're listening to this podcast, you have some level of commitment to being, a better version of yourself, or a more enhanced version of yourself as you move forward, and just understand that there is always more to learn. There's always more information you can get and use for your own experience in and of the moment and for the future. And understand also that truth is not static. Some truths are, but some truths aren't. So something, it might not be absolute, and it could be more dynamic, and use that information to, as I say, have more of an expansive thought pattern and process as you go forward. And then using emotional intelligence as you go forward. That was of course mentioned in the CLEAR model for financial financial emotions, and it's prevalent throughout our entire life. Be aware of and manage the range of influences that emotions have on your life. What resonates with you on that list of balancing the truths, being adaptable, clearly communicating, always educating yourself, and using emotional intelligence? Is there anyone that resonates with you a little bit more than others? Is there anyone that you practice more or more comfortable in than others? Are there any that you just don't do at all because of a particular reason, a genuine, intentional, decision that you've made to say, I don't practice clear communication because it's never served me in the past? Or is there something else there? So that's essentially the introduction to true and truth and personal and objective truths, with a little bit of information there about discernment and an introduction to the management part. And that's blog number 1. In the second blog and the subsequent podcast that will accompany that, I'm going to dig in a wee bit deeper, certainly into discernment and into the management, and then talk about the benefits and consequences if they are done well or not, and how you can manage that as well. And I did go on to then talk about a Coach Gaz challenge, which I do in every single blog, which is consider a recent example of a situation where you leaned more heavily towards a personal truth and didn't quite leave room for the impact and influence of the objective truth. How did it work out for you using the 5 steps of the management section that I just articulated there? Figure out where you're more strong and more delinquent, where you're more comfortable and less comfortable, and consider how the outcomes of that particular example that you have in your mind could have been different had you read this blog first, is what I said in the blog, or of course had you heard this podcast first. And please let me know how it goes. Literally, please let me know how it goes. You can email me anytime. You can access me through the text chat and move forward from there. Okay, so that is it for this episode of the Best You, a Coaching podcast. I hope it was a valuable use of your time, and you'll continue to join me as we move forward together. If you did find it valuable, please do share it with at least one other person to say, hey, have a listen to this. This might resonate with you based on that situation you had before. And of course, there's lots more blogs on the website that you can go and check out there. And don't forget to check out the website, garygillen.com, for all the back episodes, all the back blogs and information to coaching and such. And also, I have been just kind of drip feeding out recently there. This is a wee bit of a shameless plug at the end, but I have been drip feeding out there an opportunity for people to have me come and speak to their organisation, their team, whomever it is they are in a community with on a variety of topics. I'm mostly sticking to the topics that I've already discussed on each of the blogs, but I can do a variety of topics. If there's a specific topic that you think you would like me to come and speak to your organisation about, absolutely free, please let me know. And I'm thinking like 45 to 60 minutes would be the talk time, and I can do it virtually. If you're local to the Greater Calgary area, I can come and visit your workplace and get an opportunity to have some dialogue with people, get to understand what people are concerned about, what they're thinking about, where they have areas of pain or angst, and then we get an opportunity to hopefully help each other as we go forward. So again, you can get in touch with me at hello@garygillen.com. Visit my website, you can see how to contact me there. Visit my website to subscribe to the mailing list, and do look out for me on Facebook. I do have a Gary Gillen Coaching Facebook page, and of course I'm active on LinkedIn every business day, as I mentioned before. Until next time, my friends, all the very, very best to you on your ongoing journey, and I will talk to you very soon. Okay, take care now. Bye-bye.